And now, direct from Las Vegas.
Welcome to Football Forecast Weekly. Each week, your host, Trip Mitchell, will introduce you to the top handicapper in Vegas, Dennis Tobler, and one of the top sportscasters in the U.S., Fred Wallen.
And welcome to a very special Football Forecast Weekly. Hi, everyone. I'm Trip Mitchell, and I'm joined by two of the best guys to work with in the whole world of football, Fred Wallen in L.A. and Dennis Tobler in Vegas. And Fred, I think it's time to congratulate Dennis. He came in within a couple games of winning the $1 million, and that is the number one sports betting contest in the world. And our guy darn near won it and did very, very well.
Well, he's done well before, but did well again this season. And Dennis, congratulations. And do you have any second thoughts about the one or two games that you might have switched on that would have given you really the big money?
Fred, you're horrible.
Yes. But let's explain a little bit. It was the circa $4 million hotel casino contest here in Las Vegas. And it's 5 picks a week against the spread in the NFL. And it was 20 weeks because they had Thanksgiving and Christmas as a separate weekend. So I finished 23rd in a tie for 23rd. The top 50 got paid. I was two selections off of 400,000, and I was 4 selections off $1.5 million. So I collected a nice little kitty full, but not near what I wanted. I'll be back next year. And to Fred's question, yes, I picked the games the Raiders were playing in more often than not. I should not have done that because I ended up hitting only about 40% of those games, while I hit 63% on this season. So yes, if I had it to do over again, I think I can do better, and I'll prove it next year.
Well, here's the thing. And Fred, you and I have been around this business for a long time, and both working for the Sports and Entertainment Network and the American Sports Radio Network. And we know that most of the guys who give out information are full of you-know-what. And they talk about hitting 70 and 80%. But the contest that Dennis was in was the quantifiable leading contest. I've used that word too much. I've got to get away from it. But, it's no BS. I mean, these picks, you can go online, you can see them. Don't ever take advice from someone who says they pick 70% a year. Fred, would you agree on that?
Oh, yes, of course I would agree on that. And all the guys that, not all the guys, most of the guys that do those kind of shows tell you that they hit 70 or 75%. You can do that over a few weeks, but you really can't do it too often over 20 weeks. I think that's really stretching the imagination. It's awfully tough. And of all the years, this is probably the weirdest. And you started, Dennis started when 5 years of age. I don't remember a year as weird as this, starting with the Raiders in Gruden and going from there. And even with everything except the Super Bowl now we've got racism again in the National Football League. And I think they picked on the wrong guy in Brian Flores, and everywhere in between, up and down, you never know. So anybody that says over an extended period of time, they hit over 70%, they're magical or they're lying. And I don't know which is true.
Well, pretty much
I do know.
I think they're lying. I have a real quick story that I want to pass on. A guy named Tom Gordon won this contest, and it's so ironic that I know who this guy was because in 2001, he won a similar contest for the offshore sportsbook Carib in Antigua, while me and Buzz Daly were there filming, and Buzz was writing articles about him. We watched that contest transpire. Tom won that contest. He parlayed it into a gambling career. Now, 20 years later, he was the winner of the $1.5 million at Circa. So it just goes to show, you better have some experience, you better have some knowledge, and you better have some background if you want to compete with the big guys in the world for the big money. So I was very happy for Tom. I can't believe the irony of that. And I'm also so pleased with my background in sports betting history. I have seen it all, and I'm very thankful for that.
You failed to mention my $1.43 that I won on FanDuel.
Well, I was going to ask you to go ahead and fill us in now on the fantasy jackpot you won this year. So tell us how it went, Fred.
Well, actually, I'm ahead, but we were talking about one time when they said I was a winner, and it was split 1,000 ways. So I ended up for my quarter, I ended up with $1.43. So I kid Dennis about this all the time. I said, "So you win the big money in the circuit contest, but I won $1.43."
Winning is winning, and that's what I say. Winning is winning.
Well, it has been, and Fred, you bring it up. It has been the weirdest season with the COVID, a new 17-game schedule. You mentioned John Gruden getting fired. It has been a weird year. And, that's where the quality rises to the top. And I'll just interject for a second. The Hilton contest used to be the big one in Vegas. But if you're going to listen to people, look at people who are willing to put their games out there on the ledger for real, total transparency. And those are the people you should listen to. And I'm so proud to be working with you guys. And this is a weird Super Bowl. The odds on the Rams and the Bengals getting here were shocking. But I just want to say, the reason the NFL is such a dominant league, and the numbers are insane in terms of the viewership numbers in a declining television market, they're going up and almost having record years, is we literally, the last 6 games of the playoffs were probably the best in history. Dennis, why don't you start and give me your thoughts?
The playoff games were absolutely fantastic. Another caveat to the contest. Several of us might have done a little bit better if it wasn't for the last 3 weeks of COVID, because the lines would come out on Thursday and Friday, and then you would never know the players until Saturday. So there were spots there where you almost had to take the big point spread advantage in order to protect your position. So it was a double tough contest this year to stay up in the top brackets of it. And, in any other year, it wouldn't have been. But yet this year, there were so many people, over 66% in this contest. It's almost unbelievable. And Tom hit 70%. That's the first time it's ever been done over history. Never been 70% winners at the Hilton. My partner, Steve's won the Hilton, came in second twice. And my figures this year beat all 3 of his collections. So, it's a pretty tough game. It's getting tougher as we go. It was a tough year. But, man, I'm telling you, we had the winners on this show, and we had the followers from books from Colorado to New Jersey to Pennsylvania, California. This show was viewed all over the world, and we should be proud of it.
I know we are the number one, and Fred, I know you're very proud of this. We're the number 1 sports handicapping show in Iran. We've got 1 viewer, and he bets like crazy. And he's got a drinking problem too. But we are big time in the Middle East. So, Fred, just kind of encapsulate. What are your thoughts on such a weird season?
Well, again, Dennis mentioned the COVID, and that, of course, had a lot to do with it. In betting strategy, sometimes you were sort of locked out and you weren't sure what was going to happen late in the week. You'd find out your quarterback wasn't going to play at all. And again, I play fantasy, and obviously you pick certain quarterbacks. So that doubly hit me. It hit me just in a straight bet way, and it hit me as far as the fantasy was concerned. Again, from the Raiders, who shocked a couple times, they win when they shouldn't have win, and Dennis mentioned this, and they lose perhaps when people jump the board. And of course, probably Carr's gone. A lot of teams are looking for a quarterback. I imagine Carr's gone. And of course, a big thing for me, I'd always been an Aaron Rodgers guy. The reason being, he was a Cal guy. I thought he was smart. Thought he did a real good job doing the Jeopardy tryout. And then we find out that he was immunized. And of course, but he wasn't vaxxed, which tells you, and I know he had an ego, but that just told me he had one of the world's biggest egos, almost as big and maybe as big as the idiot we had for 4 years in DC. That's how big his guy's ego is. He thinks he can lie to everybody. He thinks he can fool everybody. And he got away with it for a period of time. In actuality, he got sick the 1 week, but he got away with it as far as the NFL, a small fine, but he put other people at risk. And again, you're talking to somebody, when I was 16, I lost my 7-year-old brother to leukemia. So I've been very, very careful as far as diseases, maybe even a hypochondriac, but I'm not going to put other people at risk. He was willing to do so for his own ego. And listen, even if he's proven 100% right that, hey, the vaccination wouldn't have worked and the mask wouldn't have worked, at this point in time, we don't know that. And as I tell everybody, if the vaccinations work 20% of the time, we've lost 900,000 people. So if they work 20% of the time, we've saved 180,000 lives. I know I'm talking politics, but that had to do a lot with this National Football League season. And it ended, of course, we find out now that Brian Flores indicates he was told to lose by Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, 3 years ago, trying to get the first round pick the upcoming season. Think about that for a moment. If he's got that on tape, Stephen Ross is gone. Then
Right.
Antonio Brown goes on HBO, Real Sports, and basically, I think he's got Arians on tape telling him, well, the whole scenario right away. We jumped on Antonio Brown for being a mental case, and he might be, but Arians apparently, allegedly, told him some things, again, beyond belief. I'm not sure Arians are going to be back, and of course, earlier we find out that Tom Brady, number 12, some think the greatest of all time, has really retired. So the Brady Bunch comes back on TV, I'm sure. And I don't know who the wife's going to be on the show. But anyway, the point being, it's been quite a year. And Dennis, take it from there.
Oh, I agree. And we're going to see wholesale changes this year, too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rodgers in Denver next year. You're right about the Raiders here. The Raiders brought in the front office of the Patriots, and they think they can replicate what the Patriots did. That remains to be seen. If they don't work out a deal for Carr, they're in trouble, because Carr is the glue that held the Raiders together. And you got to have a quarterback that can do that. I don't care. And none of these young guys that they picked out, Joe Burrow. Oh, and I do have a comment about Joe Burrow to all my fans back in Nebraska, or my fair weather friends, shall we put it? It was a time when Scott Frost said that Joe Burrow was not talented enough to play at Nebraska. So when you people in Nebraska want to cry in your own beer, don't cry to me, okay? So anyway, there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of personnel changes too. But the Super Bowl should be a fantastic game. Every one of those playoff games came down to the last play of the game, or it went in overtime. So they were tremendous. The betting public came out okay on some of them, and some of them they didn't come out on. I happened to win almost every side. I put a ton of money on the over in the Kansas City matchup against Cincinnati, but it didn't happen because Patrick Mahomes has been figured out, guys, and they know how to stop him. He scored 3 points in the second half. That's it. Joe Burrows is a winner. Joe Burrows has got he reminds me of Joe Namath. Is that dating myself? Because Joe Burrows, and we'll get to the game, Joe Burrows might just go into LA and take the world championship right off the table.
Well, I'm going to let you guys get after it. And again, this has been so much fun this year. We have done a great job. So I'm going to let the two experts take it away from here. Dennis and Fred, tell us about the game.
Thank you, Trip. Well, first of all, I think we ought to let the public in on the information with the game. The Rams open as a 4-point favorite, and the total was 49. And I honestly thought, Fred, that was it. I mean, it wouldn't move a hair from there. And then somebody come in and bet at Caesars $500,000 to win, or bet 575,000 to win $500,000 on the Rams, and they immediately moved the line to 4.5. And then I heard of another one at Circa come in and made a big bet on the Rams. So 4.5 seems to be the number now, which I never thought it'd ever get above 4. So I'm trending the opposite way, obviously. And in my mind, these bookmakers, they got a couple, there's a lot of time that they can milk money out of the public on these games by changing juice on the totals and on the sides and stuff like that. I thought 4 and 49 was a perfect number. Now it's 48 it's 4.5 and 48.5. It went down. So that's where we're sitting. And the game will be on the 16th of February. I suspect it'll start somewhere 2 p.m. Pacific time. But that's the input that we have. And as the lines move, I want all the people to remember that if they move right before game time, those are squares betting and not pay attention to it. Fred, comments on the line, the money line, anything you might want to say?
Well, I had the Rams plus 220 before the championship weekend. So I've got something going in as far as is concerned. I think I'm going to jump on the 4.5, not for the entire amount, but maybe for a third of it or 40% of it. So if it falls, the Rams win 1, 2, 3, or 4, I win both ways. And at worst, I'm going to win something. So more than $1.43. But not a whole lot more, but a little bit more than $1.43.
No, that's a fantastic middle right there. I mean, if you're smart enough on the future bet to jump on, and now you've got them and you get 4.5 points, I almost guarantee you that game's going to land in 4.5 points or Cincinnati win. So you just as well bet the whole wad and try to middle it.
The one thing I hesitate as far as the Rams are concerned, I am not a big Sean McVay fan. In the championship week, he wasted 3 timeouts, and the last one was a killer. Anybody watching on TV, and he was just watching on this big screen, he was watching the same views we were. There was no way Stafford had that first down. He was a half a yard short. It wasn't even close. He wasted it. I think he's a ham. And when sometimes the word entitlement comes into play a lot in sports. He got the job at the age of 30, youngest coach in history, I do believe. Now he's 36, and he got to the finals a few years ago, losing, of course, to the Patriots. But the point I'm trying to make is it's gone to his head. He thinks he's a super genius. He's trying to outthink you. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But you can't go into a situation where the 49ers have beaten you 6 times in a row. And I'm wearing a 49ers sweatshirt here, but a hoodie here. But anyways, you can't go into a situation leaving yourself no timeouts in the fourth quarter. You got to assume it's going to be a close game, do you not?
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. And I don't know if you or somebody said that he coaches like he has a shiny new toy at quarterback, and he wants to, enhance his own credentials by these plays and all of this stuff. But yeah, I agree with you about him. And he just has so much talent there. It's hard to screw that up. I mean, his defense is so good. I don't know how he can screw it up, but he screws it up offensively mostly is what he does. But I agree with you about him on that. And I think taking the points in this game, so we just as well analyze the game. I mean, Joe Burrow has 3 deep backs that have caught 50-yard touchdown passes this year. The Bengals have more 50-yard scores than any other team in the league. And the Rams, of course, they have a great defense. But look, that middle linebacker the Rams has, can't think of his name, but you'll know it, number 51, he is no good. He can't fill a hole. He can't backdrop in the middle and cover the pass. That's going to be a big problem because Joe Burrow could put the pass anywhere.
Joe Burrow is going for something that nobody's done. He won the state championship in Ohio. Of course, he transferred from Ohio State to LSU. He wins the NCAA the BCS championship with LSU, and he's got a chance for the Super Bowl. Nobody in history has ever accomplished that. That's got to be saying a lot. I'm big on Herbert, the Los Angeles Chargers QB. These 2 guys, along with Mahomes and Allen, are going to be the 4 quarterbacks leading the way for the next decade or so, barring injuries. I don't think you can name some others too, but I mean, those 4 have to be near the top, and they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. And as you indicated, as Tripp indicated, the TV ratings for sports way down, but not the National Football League. And as long as these 4 quarterbacks continue to play, people are going to be tuning in all the time.
Yeah, with games like the wild cards and the playoff games, you bet they will. They're exciting. I just think that Burrow shows the confidence of a Joe Namath. That's the only thing I can read. Now, didn't Joe win Alabama the national championship, the AFC championship, and then the Super Bowl? Maybe
But
you're not quite
he
remembering
didn't win.
back. Maybe you don't count the AFL as the NFL of today, but Joe Namath did that very same thing. And Joe
Well,
Burrow reminds me of him so much because he's so confident. He's confident and he's calm, and he can throw the ball out there or he can hold on to the thing and get sacked. That one game, when I bet the over, he was sacked 9 times in that game, and they still won the game. Okay. Now that's a quarterback that doesn't get flustered. Okay. I think he's fantastic. He's got a big career ahead of him. And I'm not going to be surprised if the Cincinnati Bengals win this football game.
Let me say this from a positive perspective, a good note. Kelly Stafford and her husband gave away $200,000 worth of Super Bowl tickets. And that's pretty neat. I mean, people say, well, he makes 30 or 40 million. Still, giving away 200,000, like Russell Wilson has done a few times in these charity golf tournaments, is something I will never forget. I really won't. But from a negative side, second or third last play, fourth last play of the 49er game, Jimmy G made a horrendous pass. Everybody says, how can you make a pass like that? Well, 2 times this year, Stafford did exactly the same thing for the Rams, exactly the same kind of pass from the end zone. This wasn't even from the end zone in Jimmy G. It was close to the end zone. So it's not as if Stafford has played a perfect season. And I think that might be the difference, keeping the game close. And again, can anybody guard Chase? I don't know. He seems to, and again, he's got an advantage. He played at LSU with Burrow. So now they played together, even though he's a rookie, they played together a long period of time. They know each other, even if Burrow missed last season. But the point is, they got a shot here. And I think the 4.5 is a really good play.
Yeah, I do too. I expect it to go down, don't you? I mean, down to 4 at least. I never thought it'd go off of 4. But anyway, the only people I've talked to and the wise guys, everybody likes the money here. And a lot of people think Cincinnati can win this game. So I'm one of the ones that think they can, because I think the Rams may screw up on offense. Look at the penalties they have and some of the stuff and the coaching. Some of those coaching decisions will come into play here. But the thing that really matters to me most is I think the Bengals can score from anywhere on the field at any time. I'm not sure the Rams can do that. Maybe they can with Odell Beckham, because he played better. All of them played better, except for, I'm not going to give that quarterback that much credit, because just like you said, he missed several bad passes there. And he's got the most excellent talent in the world to throw to and a most excellent offensive line to keep him safe. So, we expect a lot more out of quarterbacks like that. But I think he's outmatched in this game. I think Joe Burrow is the next up-and-coming big-time quarterback in the NFL. And I think I have a lot of respect for Josh Allen, too, but he just is not the same. He came from North Dakota, he went to Wyoming, he goes to Buffalo. Okay, not the same thing as Burrow, always thinking he's the best, from Ohio to Louisiana to where he is now. And he didn't let things like the Nebraska coach, Scott Frost, say he didn't have enough talent to play there. You wonder why Nebraska hasn't been in the top 20 in the last 17 to 25 years. Is because that's what they do in Nebraska. They don't know what they're doing in Nebraska. But that is one of my go-to answers to all the Cornhusker fans, because everyone knows I'm not. They didn't offer me a scholarship when I was an all-state football player in Nebraska. They offered it to people in California and Texas. So I've never been a Nebraska fan, and I never will be. And actually, it heartens me to see them in a hole like they're in. Got carried away. But I'm a Joe Burrow fan club man.
Hey, since we're talking really more than just the Super Bowl, we'll be talking more about that a little later on the show, and some propositions that seem a little enticing. But since you mentioned Nebraska, please explain something to me. And I'm a UCLA fan, okay? There's $62 million in the hole. They got a $62.5 million deficit, the athletic program, and yet they extend Chip Kelly 4 more years at more than $5 million per season. He's under 500 in his 4 years. They win 8 games this year. A lot of schools win 8 games, you know, and of course they didn't get to play in the Holiday Bowl because of COVID. But the point I'm trying to make is he's not one of the better coaches out there. There's $62 million in the hole, actually $100 and something million if you go back another year, but 62 just over the last 2. And they give Chip Kelly an extension, and there's 14 kids that have left the program in the protocol, transfer protocol from UCLA. USC with Riley getting all the top-notch kids that he wants, including Oklahoma's quarterback from last year. Something screwy's going around in Westwood too. So even though I want to balance out your Nebraska, not the only school that makes mistakes, and the Bruins made a real big one in giving Chip Kelly the extension.
How many years has Chip been there?
4.
Okay, they gave him 4 more. Well, Scott Frost has been at Nebraska, I believe, for 4. He hasn't had a winning season. They haven't went to a bowl game. And you know what? You know what else he did this year? He fired all of his assistant coaches.
Yeah.
So he fired all these assistant coaches, said Joe Burrow was no good, and now they're going to come back and try to revive that program. Well, good luck, because all the people in Nebraska donate their oil money to the University of Nebraska, because that's the only thing they have to do up there. They've got about 8 Saturdays a year. They can get together and have some kind of a party in the state of Nebraska, and that's what they do. So I've been there, done that. Not fun. I'll take Las Vegas every day of the week. But yeah, it's interesting to talk about all of these configurations, and college football. It still astounds me how the Southeastern Conference colleges get so many quality black athletes when the whole school are racist. Now, that's a bad thing to say on TV, but I mean, give me a break. Take Liberty University. Okay, not only is Falwell Jr. been kicked off as the president, but what they teach, the curriculum they teach there is basic biblical hatred, and yet they are racist to the core. But who plays on their basketball teams? Who plays on their football teams? Why do those black people and those top black athletes go to those schools? I think there's a lot to be hashed out about everything. I think America may be coming to a moment of change. I think 2022 is going to be a moment of change. I hope it's a moment of change for the better.
Let me just add one more political note. State of Tennessee, and I think other states are going in this direction, will not allow books on racism nor the Holocaust in school. I'm going to repeat that, folks. The state of Tennessee will not allow books showing our racism or the stories of the Holocaust in their school libraries. See, my point would be, that's nuts, beyond belief. And I'm telling you, even if somebody wrote a book pro-racism, pro-slavery, the kid should read both sides of everything. Instead, they can't read any stories about racism or the Holocaust. And you got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the grandson of the Nazi sympathizer Joe Kennedy, going on national TV saying basically, forcing you to take a vaccination put you in a worse situation than Anne Frank was put under the Nazis in Holland. When you hear something from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. like this, you got to say to yourself, the whole world's going nuts and we're part of it.
Well, we are, and the only thing you can do is keep hopeful. That's all, and keep yourself safe. And that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to keep our viewers safe. We've tried to pass on legitimate information to everybody, tell everybody how it affects our business and everybody else's. And I think we've done a good job all year long, and I think we're on the right side of history. Well, I think it's time to look at the game and make our picks, Fred. So why don't I turn it over to you? You tell me your side and your total, and give me a couple of them special prop bets, because you know what you're doing when it comes to fantasy.
Well, first of all, the prop bet that's interesting, based on the fact that you take a look at the last few weekends in the National Football League, every game is close. 3 weeks ago, in the semifinal games, every game came down to the last shot, last play. Even in the conference games, the Rams, without, they sat on the ball for three plays, but outside of that, it came down basically the last play. You get 650 to 1 on an overtime game. Over 10. I mean, 650. Anyway, the point is,
Plus
that sounds like a pretty interesting thing. And then you're going to say, well, how many games go into overtime? Well, recently, a lot of them have been real close. Both teams have good field goal kickers here that could tie it up. So the question going to overtime, 650 is not a bad situation as far as that is concerned. And the other one that I like a lot, Beckham, you mentioned Odell. Listen, he's very good, but he also has a very big ego. He's now going to be seen by millions around the world. I think the total yards receptions, the different books have different numbers, somewhere between 63 and 64.5 yards. He catches 5 passes, which he will. One time, if he breaks one for 30, the other 4 or 5 catches he's going to make are going to be more than 35. That seems like an awfully good straight up wager, 11 to win 10 on Beckham gaining more than 65 yards, 63.5 yards through the air. And I think he will. So those are the two that sort of stand out in my mind.
Well, I love that. I mean, I think Beckham might get 65 yards on one play.
Yeah.
So if he catches 3 or 4, he caught 6 or 7, right? The last game, he's going to get to 60 something. That's a great prop bet. And the other one too, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up in a tie and they go to overtime. How many games did of the playoffs? 3, 4, 5 of them? I mean, that's what they'll play for if they have to at the end. I don't think there's going to be a ton of scoring here. I know Cincinnati's defense is laggard compared to the Rams. And I'm telling you this too, the Rams, their defense is just now coming into being. We're taking a big risk here taking Cincinnati. And I'm just taking it on the fact that these young guys aren't overwhelmed by those older Ram players, but the Rams on the defensive line is about as good as you've ever seen. Their cornerbacks are great. The only problem they have is right there in the middle, but that's where Odell Beckham will work. He'll work in the middle over that linebacker. They'll throw over the middle linebacker in front of the safeties, and he will get a bunch of yards there. I just think the half point on the 4 is too many. And I even think if it was 3.5, I would take the Bengals, because these defenses, Cincinnati's defense is decent enough. It held Kansas City to 3 points in the second half. So, if they do rise to the occasion a little bit or get a turnover, then they can easily, stay in this game, and it will be low scoring that way. And that's the way it's trending. What do you think? I mean, 49 was the open. It's down to 48.5.
I'm going to stay away from that total because, again, Jalen Ramsey, their best defensive back by far, has had bad moments too. And I'm a little frightened about that. Maybe it's sort of gone to his head at this point because everybody's saying what I just said, that he's by far, he's one of the best defensive backs in the league. There's no question. Quarterbacks in all of football over the last decade, he's been one of the best. But you mentioned Burrow. I mean, so he can look at offense. Quarterbacks control everything. Burrow is that good. He can throw 3 or 4 touchdown passes against the best defense in the league. I don't think there's any question about that. Rams have had injuries. And again, we're working against McVay, who's going to make mistakes as a coach. So I would pass on the 49. If I were going to lean one way or the other, I would actually think over because of Burrow. And also because Stafford, because he's got the wide receivers. You're not going to do much better than Beckham and Kupp. And somebody made an interesting point, Dennis, about Kupp. I think it was on ESPN. They said, because he's white, the defensive backs in the league don't think he's that fast. Well, Dennis, I don't see too many guys catching him.
No, nobody catches him. No, he's one of the great ones too. I mean, That's why this total going down to 46 or 48.5 kind of baffled me, because I was thinking more of the lines at 27-24, something like that, 28-24. Either way, you're going to cover the 4.5. And if it ends that's 51. So, I mean, could easily go over the 49 or whatever. I believe it opened at 50. 49, now 48.5. Probably see a variety of changes from a variety of books. Want to mention now just shortly that there are 26 states taking action, and those 26 states offer different lines and different props. So wherever you are out there, listen to us in Las Vegas and LA, because we do it for real. So you will have the advantage on these point spreads when you're out there betting. Well, that's the way I see it. Anyway, I'm going to take Cincinnati. And I might even play a little bit of them on the money line here. And I'm going to play the under simply because I don't think that they're going to be able to run the ball, either one of them. Either one of them run the ball. So they're all going to pass. And I'm just going to say it's going to slide a hair under. I thought 27-24, but somewhere along the line, they're going to miss some extra points, go for 2, or something will happen. And I'm going to tend to trend towards the under. And I reserve the right to change my mind, people.
I forgot which coach did this now, but might have been in the Tennessee game, but I'm not sure. But anyways, they're going for the extra point, and the defense committed a penalty. So now they moved the ball from the 2-yard line to the 1-yard line, and then they went for 2. So my point is, I don't know what the odds are of making it from 2 versus 1. But it can't be that great of a difference that you would actually go for 2 if in your head and the book says, analytics say, go for 1. Please explain that, Dennis, because I didn't believe it.
A lot of times the coaches, and how many times have I said that every professional gambler is smarter than a professional NFL head coach? Okay. How many times have I said it? I can point out the deficiencies of every team. Okay. But that's right. You're right.
Yeah, I think it was Tennessee. I think it was Henry who was stopped.
Yeah, Tennessee. He moved it to the 1-yard line. They didn't get the extra point. Cost them the game.
But on the other hand, Cincinnati's going forward and Tennessee is not.
And it's oftentimes it's that kind of momentum, something like that will elevate a team, and they just keep building on it. And I think Cincinnati did. They went into Kansas City not afraid of them, and they beat them. And they're coming into LA, and I don't think they're afraid of the Rams either. So that's the way I see the game. That's the way you see the game. And I hope the fans see the game. Well, I think it's about time we wrap up. We've covered everything for 20 weeks now. We've put out 20 shows, and they were fantastic. I want to thank you, Fred. You're the best guest I've ever had by far, the most knowledgeable by far. And we've had a great time all year. I have a couple of thank yous. Besides Fred and besides H. Lee Spencer, the producer who gets us out to the distributorship every week we do the show, I want to mention Jeff Saunders of Network Resources in Dallas, Texas, handles all my social media, all my websites, all my platforms that air the shows. And it's a hell of a job that he has to do too every week. So I want to thank Jeff Saunders. And I want to thank the people that carried the show on the platforms. There are too many to mention. The Football Forecast Weekly reached every platform this year. So we climbed to the top. I also want to talk special thanks to Trip Mitchell. He's not with us right now, but I want to thank Trip because as far as a podcast host goes, he's far better than Joe Rogan. And if you wanted to give the two of them IQ tests, I'd like to give the IQ test to our podcast host and to Joe Rogan, and then we will broadcast the results of those IQ tests. Also, I want to thank the viewers. We've had some great viewers. I have had emails and Facebook message and Twitters from all over the world, as far away as Romania, even, about these things, and all over the states, from Pennsylvania to California. And I want to make note of the fact that the bowl game show, we offered 3 DVDs free to the first 3 people who sent the emails. Well, they were gone that night. So I know people are watching this show very handily. So I want to thank the people who watch the show and believe in us, because we're there for you. And we produce the winners. and we will continue to produce the winners. And if you want to follow along on our track, just follow Gambling Broadcast. Follow Fred on Sports Overnight America on Sirius XM and all the apps. He shows Friday at 10 p.m. and Saturday at 10 p.m. And it's one of the best shows on radio. So make sure you tune in to Fred. And for the rest of us, it's time for me to say ta-ta. I want to mention my relic football tie that I used to wear back in my shows in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And I'm wearing a pink shirt for a specific reason. I'm going to be the grandfather of a bouncing baby girl in 2 weeks, right after the Super Bowl. So this man is happy.
Dennis, you've done a great job for all of us. And thank you very much for having me on this year. And we go forward to thoroughbred racing in a couple of months.
You bet. That's the last thing I was going to mention. We will do Thoroughbred Racing Forecast, and it will drop on May 3rd. So everyone stay with us and watch your emails, watch your social media for the updates. So until next time, for Fred Wallen, H. Lee Spencer, and Trip Mitchell, this is Dennis Tobler signing off for the 2021 football season.
Thank you for listening to Football Forecast Weekly, an affiliate of TSI Network.